The automatic doors of Mercy General's ER didn't just slide open, they were kicked off their tracks. Glass shattered across the linoleum, spraying the triage desk like diamonds. Screams erupted instantly. It wasn't a random junkie looking for oxy. It was a man in full tactical gear, moving with the terrifying, fluid precision of a predator. An assault rifle was strapped to his chest, but he held a suppressed pistol in his right hand, scanning the room with dead, shark-like eyes. "Code Silver! Everybody down!" shouted the head of security, right before a single, silenced thwip put a bullet in his shoulder. The guard went down. The chaos turned into a frozen, terrified silence. Dr. Vance, the trauma surgeon who treated the ER like his personal kingdom, was hiding behind a crash cart, hyperventilating. His expensive watch rattled against the metal tray. But Serena Blake stood still. She was the night nurse nobody noticed, the one who cleaned up the vomit, reorganized the supply closet, and never spoke more than 2 words. She was holding a tray of saline bags near Bay 4. She didn't drop it. She didn't scream. Her heart rate didn't even spike. The gunmen marched toward the nurse's station, grabbing a terrified resident by the hair. "Where is Senator Sterling?" he barked. His voice was gravel, distorted by a throat mic. He wasn't here for drugs. He was here to finish a hit. Serena watched his movements. High-ready weapon carry. Finger outside the trigger guard until target acquisition. Professional. Mercenary. She took a slow step forward, her eyes locking onto the man's exposed forearm. Beneath the edge of his tactical glove, ink bled into the skin, a jagged, double-headed serpent wrapping around a dagger. The symbol of the 4th Echelon Ghost Unit, a unit that didn't officially exist, a unit Serena had commanded 6 years ago. The gunman raised his weapon at Dr. Vance, who was sobbing now. "I'll ask once more. Where is the senator?" Vance pointed a shaking finger toward the ICU elevators. The gunman smirked, ready to pull the trigger on Vance just to clear the path. "Wait!" Serena's voice cut through the air. It wasn't loud, but it possessed a command authority that froze the room. She stepped out from the shadows, hands empty but palms open. The gunman swung the muzzle toward her chest. "Get back, nurse, or you die first." Serena looked him dead in the eyes, her expression bored. She nodded at his tattoo. "Your stance is wide, Corporal. You're favoring your left knee. Old injury from the Kandahar drop?" The gunman froze. His eyes widened behind his tactical glasses. "Code Black 09, Serena whispered, loud enough for him. "Stand down." The gunman's finger twitched on the trigger. 4 hours earlier, the only thing Serena Blake was fighting was the urge to roll her eyes. The ER was overflowing with flu cases and Friday night bar fights, and Dr. Vance was on a rampage. He was the kind of surgeon who mistook God-complexed for actual talent. "Blake, I asked for 4-0 sutures, not 3-0, Vance roared, throwing the sterile packet onto the blood-slicked floor. "Can you read, or is that too much to ask of the night staff?" Serena didn't flinch. She simply picked up the packet. Standard protocol for this depth of laceration suggests 3-0, doctor, to prevent tearing. "I don't pay you to think, I pay you to assist," Vance sneered, turning his back on her to flirt with a young med student. Honest to God, it's like working with the janitorial staff. Some of these nurses belong in the morgue, not the OR. The head nurse, Brenda, chuckled from the doorway. Brenda had made it her life's mission to make Serena's shifts miserable. She dumped a stack of paperwork on the counter. "When you're done being useless, Serena, clean up Bay 6. Homeless guy threw up. Seems right up your alley." Serena took the abuse in silence. She always did. It was part of the cover. To the world, she was a 30-year-old washout with no family and a mediocre resume from a community college in Ohio. They saw the faded scrubs and the messy bun. They didn't see the scar running down her spine from a shrapnel blast in Syria. They didn't see the calluses on her hands from fast dropping out of Blackhawks. She walked to the supply closet, her reflection catching in the glass cabinet. Her eyes were tired, but sharp. Too sharp for a nurse. She had spent a decade hunting warlords and patching up teammates in the back of burning Humvees. Now she was being belittled by a man who panicked if his latte was non-fat. "You really let him talk to you like that?" the young security guard Mike asked kindly as she grabbed a mop. "It pays the bills, Mike," Serena murmured, forcing a weak smile. "You're too soft, Serena. You gotta toughen up in this place," Mike advised, adjusting his belt. If only he knew. Being soft was the hardest disguise she had ever worn. Suddenly, the overhead speakers crackled. "Trauma incoming. Senator Sterling. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. ETA 2 minutes. Secure the wing." The atmosphere shifted. VIP patient. High stakes. Vance started preening, fixing his scrub cap in the mirror. "Showtime, people. Let's get the cameras ready." Serena felt a prickle on the back of her neck, the spidey sense. Something wasn't right. Senators didn't just get shot in random muggings. And then the automatic doors exploded inward. Back in the present, the silence in the ER was heavier than lead. The gunman stared at Serena, his brain trying to process the impossible. A lowly nurse in a civilian hospital knew the classified call sign of a black ops wet work team? "Who are you?" the gunman hissed, his aim wavering slightly. He was confused. Confusion in combat was fatal. "Someone who knows you're off mission," Serena said, her voice dropping an octave, slipping into the flat, sterile tone of a commanding officer. "This is a sanctioned hospital zone. You're burning your burn notice." "I have orders," he shouted, snapping back to reality. "Senator Sterling doesn't leave this building alive. Move." He pistol-whipped Serena across the face. The force of the blow knocked her backward. She tasted copper. The room gasped. Dr. Vance squealed like a trapped rabbit. Serena hit the floor, wiping a streak of blood from her lip. She didn't get up immediately. She stayed low, watching the gunman's boots. Mistake, she thought. He stepped inside my guard. The gunman turned his attention back to the elevators. "Team 2, breach the rear entrance. Secure the stairwell. I'm moving to the ICU." He spoke into his radio. He wasn't alone. This was a coordinated siege. "Please," Vance cried out, crawling out from behind the cart. "I can take you to him. Just don't kill me. I'm the chief of surgery." Serena's eyes narrowed. Vance was selling out the patient to save his own skin. Typical. The gunman grabbed Vance by the collar of his white coat. "Lead the way, Doc. Make a wrong turn and I paint the walls with your brains." They moved toward the double doors leading to the interior corridors. The gunman dragged Vance, leaving the rest of the ER staff cowering on the floor. The moment the doors swung shut, Serena was on her feet. "Serena, stay down," Brenda whispered harshly from under a desk. "Don't be a hero." Serena ignored her. She ripped off her stethoscope and threw it on the counter. She grabbed a pair of trauma shears and a portable oxygen cylinder. "Mike," Serena said to the wounded guard, kneeling beside him for a split second to check his pulse. "Give me your radio." "Mike, what are you doing?" Mike groaned, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "Taking the night shift," she said coldly. She snatched the radio and vanished through the service corridor door before anyone could stop her. The soft nurse was gone. The ghost was awake. The hospital was a labyrinth, but Serena knew every inch of it. She didn't take the main hallway. She took the ventilation maintenance corridors that ran parallel to the ICU transport route. She could hear Dr. Vance sobbing as the gunman shoved him toward the elevators. "It's the 3rd floor, room 304, please." Serena sprinted. Her breathing was rhythmic, controlled. No panic, just calculation. The gunman had backup coming from the rear stairs. She had to isolate the leader before his team secured the perimeter. She reached the breaker box for the east wing. With a swift kick, she smashed the panel open and yanked the master lever. Clunk. The entire wing plunged into darkness. The emergency red lights flickered on, bathing the sterile white hallways in a blood-colored gloom. "What the hell?" the gunman roared in the distance. "Team 2, sit rep. Who cut the power?" Static. Serena had already jammed the local frequency using a trick with the guard's radio she learned in Grozny. They couldn't talk to each other. She slipped into the stairwell, moving like smoke. She found the first member of Team 2 coming up the stairs, a bulky mercenary with night vision goggles. He was scanning the landing. He never heard her. The gunman didn't have a gun. She didn't need one. She dropped from the railing above him, wrapping her legs around his neck in a silent chokehold. He thrashed, clawing at her arms, but her grip was iron. 10 seconds, that's all it took. He went limp. She stripped him of his comms earpiece and checked his pulse. Alive, but out for the count. She wasn't murdering them, she was dismantling them. She put the earpiece in. Viper 1, this is Viper 2. Sector clear. She mimicked the man's deep voice. Copy. I'm at the ICU doors. The doctor is weeping like a child. We have the target in 2 mics. Serena checked the mercenary's belt. She took a flashbang grenade and a combat knife. She looked at her reflection in the stairwell glass. Blood on her lip, scrubs torn, eyes burning with a cold fire. She wasn't protecting the hospital anymore. She was hunting. She opened the door to the ICU floor just as the gunman kicked open the doors to Senator Sterling's room. Time to scrub in, she whispered. Inside room 304, Senator Sterling was sedated, hooked up to monitors that beeped rhythmically in the red emergency light. His security detail was already dead in the hall, 2 suits dropped by the gunman's suppressor before Vance had even finished whimpering. The gunman threw Vance into the corner. Watch the door, Doc. If anyone comes in, scream. Vance curled into a ball, useless. The gunman approached the bed, raising his pistol to the senator's head. Contract complete. Clang! A metal tray dropped loudly in the corner of the room, near the bathroom. The gunman spun around, weapon raised. Who's there? Silence. I said, come out. He crept toward the bathroom, checking his corners. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. He turned back to the bed and saw her. Serena was standing between him and the senator. She had moved across the room in total silence while he was distracted by the noise. You, the gunman growled, the nurse. You have a sucking chest wound waiting to happen, Serena said calmly. She was holding a syringe, not a weapon, just a standard 50cc syringe. Get out of the way, bitch. Look at the senator, Serena said. The gunman glanced at the patient. The IV line had been severed. The bag was dripping onto the floor, but the tube going into the senator's arm was now connected to a different bag, one Serena had pulled from her pocket. What did you do? Succinylcholine, Serena lied smoothly. Paralytic. But I also mixed in a volatile marker. If you shoot him, the splatter will contaminate you. It's a binary poison. Breathing it in kills you in 30 seconds. It was a bluff. A ridiculous medical jargon bluff, but mercenaries were paranoid about bioweapons. The gunman hesitated, taking a half step back. You're lying, he sneered. Check the hue of the IV drip, it's blue, she pointed. He looked. For a split second, his eyes left her to check the bag. That was the silent reveal. He realized too late that no ordinary nurse waits for a gunman in the dark with a bio-warfare threat. He recognized the tactic. It was a distraction technique taught in SEER school. You're not a nurse, he whispered, realization dawning. No, Serena said, triggering the flashbang she had hidden behind her back and closing her eyes. I'm the chief of staff. Boom! The flashbang detonated with a blinding white light and a deafening roar. In a confined space of the hospital room, it was devastating. The gunman screamed, clutching his eyes, his equilibrium shattered. Serena lunged. She didn't go for his gun, she went for his throat. She slammed him against the wall, her forearm crushing his windpipe. He fired blindly, crack, 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 bullets shattering the window and the monitor screens. Dr. Vance screamed and scrambled out of the room on his hands and knees. Serena disarmed the gunman with a bone-breaking twist of his wrist. The pistol skittered across the floor. But he was huge, fueled by adrenaline. He shook off the stun and threw Serena across the room. She crashed into a cart of medical instruments, glass slicing into her arm. "Vance!" Serena shouted, seeing the surgeon in the doorway. "Grab the gun! Shoot him!" Dr. Vance looked at the gun on the floor. Then he looked at the massive killer charging at Serena. Then he looked at the exit. I can't," Vance yelled. "Pick it up," Serena commanded.
Vance scrambled for the gun. He picked it up. His hands were shaking. He pointed it. Not at the gunman. At Serena. Serena froze. The gunman stopped his charge, confused, wiping blood from his eyes. "Doctor," the mercenary rasped. "Don't kill me," Vance pleaded, tears streaming down his face, the gun aimed at Serena's chest. "I'll help you. I can get you out. I know the service exits. I can testify she went crazy. Just let me live." The twist cut deeper than any knife. Vance wasn't just a coward, he was a survivor of the worst kind. He was willing to execute his own staff to buy favor with the killer. "Smart man," the mercenary laughed, spitting out a tooth. He looked at Serena. "Looks like you're out of friends, ghost." Serena stared at Vance. "You hold that gun like a child, Vance. The safety is still on." Vance looked down at the gun in panic. In that millisecond of distraction, the mercenary pulled a secondary knife from his boot and lunged at Serena. Vance dropped the gun and ran into the hallway, abandoning both of them. Serena dodged the knife, but not fast enough. It slashed her scrub top, grazing her ribs. She was cornered, unarmed, betrayed, and the killer was done playing games.
Serena scrambled back, kicking a heavy mayo stand into the mercenary's shins. He grunted but didn't stop. He slashed again, the blade singing through the air inches from her jugular. She rolled over the hospital bed, putting the unconscious senator between them. "You can't hide, sweetheart," the mercenary growled, stalking around the bed. "My team is sweeping the floor. You are trapped." Serena looked at the wall, the oxygen ports, the suction regulators. She grabbed the suction tubing, ripping it from the canister. "I'm not hiding," Serena said, her breath ragged. "I'm triaging." She waited for him to lunge. When he did, she didn't block. She whipped the heavy plastic suction tubing like a garrote, wrapping it around his knife arm. She yanked hard, using his own momentum to pull him face first into the metal bed rail. Crack! His nose shattered. He roared, dropping the knife. He grabbed her by the throat with his free hand, lifting her off the ground. Her feet dangled. Black spots danced in her vision. "Die," he hissed. Serena's hand groped the wall behind her. Her fingers found the flow meter for the oxygen. She ripped the glass humidifier bottle off, smashing the jagged glass neck against the mercenary's exposed wrist. He howled and dropped her. Serena hit the floor, coughing, but didn't stop. She grabbed the fallen pistol Vance had abandoned. She checked the chamber. Loaded. She aimed at the door just as two more tactical soldiers burst in, weapons raised. "Contact front," one yelled. Serena fired. 2 shots, double tap, controlled pairs. One soldier took a round to the vest and stumbled back. The other ducked for cover. Serena grabbed the rolling hospital bed. "Hold on, Senator," she muttered. She kicked the brake release and shoved the bed with all her strength toward the shattered window. Not out the window, but toward the door, using it as a battering ram against the soldiers. She sprinted behind the bed, using the senator and the bulletproof mattress as mobile cover. She fired suppressing shots over the patient's body, pinning the enemy down. She burst into the hallway, pushing the bed at full speed. "Covering fire!" she yelled to nobody, confusing the enemy. She drifted the bed around the corner toward the MRI suite, the magnetic resonance imaging room, the most dangerous room in the hospital if you were wearing metal. "Come and get me," she screamed, shoving the bed into a side closet and standing alone in the open doorway of the MRI room. The mercenaries charged around the corner. Target acquired. They raised their rifles. The 2 mercenaries saw Serena standing in the center of the MRI control room, the heavy shielded door to the magnet room wide open behind her. They smiled. She was cornered. "Drop the gun," the lead merc shouted, stepping into the room. He was decked out in gear, assault rifle, sidearm, fragmentation grenades, steel-toed boots, tactical vest with steel plates. Serena dropped her gun. She held up a small remote control, the emergency quench and activation panel for the MRI. "You boys have a lot of iron in your diet," she said, her voice eerily calm. "Hands on your head," they advanced.
Serena pressed the button labeled Scan Sequence Max Power. Inside the scanner room behind her, the superconducting magnets spooled up instantly. The magnetic field didn't stay in the room, it reached out through the open door like an invisible hand of God. The effect was instantaneous and violent. The mercenaries' rifles were ripped from their hands, flying backward into the magnet room with the force of a car crash. The men screamed as their tactical vests, laden with steel plates and ammunition clips, yanked them off their feet. They flew through the air, dragged by their own gear, slamming into the MRI machine with a sickening crunch. They were pinned against the donut-shaped magnet, helpless, their weapons crushing their chests. "My arm! I can't move!" one screamed. The magnetic force was so strong it was pulling the buckles of their boots. Serena stood in the control room, outside the magnetic threshold. She had removed her name tag and watch earlier. She walked to the console and keyed the microphone. "Magnetic field strength is 3.0 Tesla. You're not going anywhere." She locked the shielded door, trapping them inside with the crushing magnet. She turned to leave, but the main door to the hallway burst open. It was the leader, the one with the broken nose. He was battered, bleeding, but he had a detonator in his hand. "You clever witch," he spat, blood bubbling on his lips. "But I rigged the oxygen main. I blow this trigger, the whole floor goes up." He held a dead man's switch. If he dropped it, or if she shot him, the hospital exploded. "Dr. Vance told me about the gas lines," the leader smiled. "A gruesome sight. Drop the attitude, it's over." Serena looked at the detonator. Then she looked at the fire sprinkler system above his head. "You missed a spot."
What? The leader blinked, confused by her lack of fear. "The tattoo," Serena said, stepping closer despite the bomb threat. "The double-headed serpent, 4th echelon." "Yeah? I earned it, did you?" he mocked. "You didn't earn it, you bought it," Serena said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "The 4th echelon was disbanded 6 years ago after Operation Black Veil. Everyone died. Everyone except the commander." The leader's arrogance faltered. He knew the legend. The commander was a ghost story. A woman who had single-handedly held a ridge against 50 insurgents to save her evac team. You're dead," the leader stammered. "Commander Blake is dead." "Serena Blake," she corrected, "and you are disgracing my unit's patch." She raised her hand. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding a cheap plastic lighter she'd swiped from the nurse's station. "You blow the oxygen, we all die," he yelled, his thumb trembling on the detonator. "No," Serena said, "I'm not blowing the oxygen." She threw the lighter up toward the fire suppression sensor on the ceiling. It didn't light. She just threw it. The leader watched it fly, distracted. In that second, Serena closed the distance. She didn't strike him. She grabbed his thumb, the one on the detonator, and clamped her hand over it, forcing it down. "If you release, it blows," she hissed, her face inches from his. "So now we hold hands." He tried to knee her, but she swept his leg, bringing them both to the floor. She kept her grip on his hand, keeping the button depressed. They were locked in a death struggle, but neither could let go of the detonator. "Who are you?" he screamed, terrified by the strength in her hands. The elevator doors dinged. "FBI, freeze!" A tactical team swarmed the hallway, led by Agent Miller. They saw the pile of bodies, the trapped men in the MRI, and the nurse pinning the leader to the ground. "Let him go," Miller shouted, aiming his rifle at Serena. "He has a dead man's switch on the oxygen main," Serena shouted back, not looking up. "I'm holding it closed. Secure the device." Agent Miller rushed forward, seeing the detonator in their hands. He placed his hand over Serena's. "I have it. I have the switch." Serena slowly released her grip, her hands shaking from the adrenaline dump. The FBI agents tackled the mercenary, securing the bomb. Miller looked at Serena. She was covered in blood, bruises forming on her face, her scrubs torn. "Who the hell are you?" Miller asked, breathless. Serena stood up, straightening her badge that hung by a single thread. "I'm just the night nurse," she said.
Then she saw Dr. Vance being handcuffed in the corner. He looked at her with wide, fearful eyes. She's a monster," Vance blubbered to the police. Serena walked past him. She leaned in close. "I'm not a monster, doctor. I'm the one who keeps the monsters away." The aftermath was a blur of blue lights and yellow tape. The press was swarming the hospital entrance. "Hero nurse saves senator," the chirons read on the news vans. In the debriefing room, the hospital director was shaking hands with the FBI special agent in charge. "We need to thank her," the director said. "Nurse Blake. She's a national hero. Where is she?" Agent Miller looked at his notepad, frowning. "We ran her prints. Serena Blake doesn't exist. The social security number belongs to a deceased woman from Ohio. The address is an empty lot." "What?" The director blinked. "But she's been working here for 3 years." "She's gone," Miller said, looking at the security footage on the monitor. On the screen, time-stamped 10 minutes ago, Serena was seen walking out the back exit. She wasn't limping. She had changed out of her scrubs into a nondescript gray hoodie and jeans. She walked past a trash can and dropped her hospital ID badge into it. Before she left the frame, she stopped and looked directly at the security camera. She raised 2 fingers to her brow, a lazy military salute. Then she disappeared into the darkness of the city. Miller zoomed in on the trash can in the footage. He sent an agent to retrieve the badge. 5 minutes later, the agent returned with the plastic ID. On the back, written in Sharpie, was a note. "Dr. Vance was selling patient data to the cartel. Check his offshore accounts. The senator is safe. Don't look for me." Miller chuckled, shaking his head. "She solved the case and cleaned house before her shift ended." "Who was she really?" the director asked, bewildered. Miller looked at the grainy image of the woman walking away. "Someone you were lucky to have, and someone you were foolish to underestimate."